Twinkle, twinkle, little star,
He's alive!
Welcome to Where the Weird Ones Are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
Hello, we are Rachel and Heather, the hosts of Like Mother Like Murder podcast.
And you're listening to Kevin on Where the Weird Ones Are.
Oh.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, now you do. Today's episode is with Erick Szilagyi. I hope I said that right again. I know I said it right when I recorded with him, but he is the host of the uNcomfortable podcast. That is the lowercase u, uppercase n, comfortable. First of all, this guy has an amazing voice. I really think he should do some voiceover work, like audiobooks or, animated stuff or something. I don't know. But very sultry, deep voice. And I've listened to his podcast for a while now. I actually learned about him long before, about a year or two before I even started my own podcast. So I've been listening to his stuff off and on for almost 5 years now. So to have him on is pretty great. He's a wicked nice guy, super down to earth, easy to get along with. Fucking, I don't know. He's a great guy, you know. And I really enjoyed the conversation with him. And there's more, so we are planning on doing a part 2. So he will be back to tell us some more of his stories. Today we get into he went on a hunting trip and there was it, it's a possible Bigfoot story. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you do, definitely go check out his podcast if you haven't heard about his podcast already. Um, I hope you go check him out as well. So he's on YouTube and all that stuff. His links will be in the show description. But anywho, I will let you guys know in on a little secret. I now have my third flavor of hot sauce. It is green apple sizzle. So this stuff is pretty spicy, but it tastes like green apples. So we got the green apple sizzle, we got the blueberry heat, and the original, the hot sauce that started it all, the hot lemon squeeze. This shit is the shit, man. I love this. I'll eat this. I'll fucking consume this stuff on anything. Um, but yeah, they're all on the website, so please go check that out. And I'm super grateful and happy to have teamed up with Flavors of the Florist. They're great guys. Love them to death. I can't thank them more than they're basically kind of like advertising me a little bit. And the hot sauce might even go be on their website, but it's raw garlic dust. Um, it's Bigfoot's breath. So you got the raw garlic dust, which is fucking phenomenal. And then we got the spicy raw garlic dust. And we got raw garlic dust infused with fucking lion's mane, dude. Check that shit out. Is that focused enough? Can you see that good? And they also sent me some ginger. So it's amazing. They're fucking great guys. I love this shit. So if you haven't checked them out, please do so. flavorsforest.com/weird. That's where you can get in there and check out their shit. I hope you do so. And let me know. Let me know what you think of their freeze-dried garlic dusts. I think it's been phenomenal. It's very potent. You don't need a whole lot of it, and you're gonna fucking taste it. So it's super good. So also, if you want to follow them, it's Flavors Forest on Instagram. I believe they have a Facebook, but I cannot remember. But please go check them out at either Instagram or go to the website and get yourself some, some garlic. Um, and that's all I got to say about that because oh my god, it's so tasty. You're missing out if you're preferring to go to the store for your the mainstream grocery stores for your garlic powders and gingers and stuff like that. Super good. So again, that's flavorsforest.com/weird, and that's my page for them. So anywho, please like, follow, share, subscribe, leave a rating and a review. I would greatly appreciate it. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, you can leave a rating and review on the website as well. That's where you can get the hot sauce. That's where you can get the merch store. And you can get the blog and the story that I'm writing in the blog, Geeks on the Streets. Chapter 3 should be out. So it's following a young man surviving through a zombie apocalypse. So check it out if you're interested. If you like reading, let me know what you think. I would greatly appreciate that. But other than that, I greatly appreciate you being here and listening to this. Again, Erick's a great guy. Definitely have to have him come on again. I really enjoyed talking to him. I really enjoy listening to him on other people's podcasts. I really enjoy listening to him on his podcast. So please check out his podcast. Again, that's uNcomfortable podcast. Yeah. So I think that about covers it, everybody. So why don't we? Oh yeah, one more thing. I fucking I should write shit down. I really should. I'm probably never gonna. I'm just gonna continue saying that I should write shit down. But I will be at in Ohio, Canton, Ohio, literally today. If you're listening to this today on Friday or Saturday, so if you're listening and you're like, oh shit, that's right, that the Monster Fest is tomorrow or today. June 29th in Canton, Ohio. It's at the Doubletree by Hilton in downtown Canton. So if you're in the area, you want to come check them out and possibly run into me, I would be down for that. So anyways, hope to see you there. If not, that's cool too, bro. That's cool too. But yeah, so if you want to be featured on the show, email me where the weird ones are, gmail.com. Hit me up on Instagram where_the weird ones are, where the weird ones are on Facebook. Leave me a little synopsis of your stories and we can get you on the show. Also, it can be anonymous if you want. We don't need to do the video or anything like that. We can just do audio and all that stuff. And I don't even need to use your name or pictures or anything like that. So if that's something that you're interested in, we can go that route as well. But other than that, that's all I got for you. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Erick. Let's fucking get into it, shall we?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Weird. Get weird.
Oh shit, that's right. This one doesn't count down. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. So happy to have you here. I am going to attempt his last name. So today I have Erick Szilagyi from the uNcomfortable podcast.
You nailed it.
Nice, perfect. I was afraid that I was going to get it wrong, but sometimes I like to at least give it a try first.
Most people do get it wrong.
Yeah, my last name people get wrong a lot too. So, but mine doesn't look as hard as yours.
Yeah, mine's got a lot of jacked up letters in it.
Yeah. I like it when it's funny when some letters are thrown into a name that don't even get used and stuff like that. So,
Well, I mean,
I'm glad I got it right.
throughout my life, I mean, people aren't even learning how to write in cursive anymore. But anytime I write my name and it's in cursive, I can throw more loops and more circles and more shit in there and more dots, and nobody is ever going to be able to tell the difference. So sometimes I just get crazy and keep whipping shit out and
I'm fucking living on the edge.
Pretty much.
Well, Erick, if you don't mind letting the good people know a little bit about yourself and about your show and where they can find you.
All right. My name is Erick Szilagyi. I am the host of uNcomfortable podcast, and it is found anywhere you get your casts. It's on all the major platforms. It's on YouTube. There's a video. The audio is on YouTube, as well as a video version of the show on YouTube. For about the last, I don't know what, maybe 6-7 months, I've been doing videos as well. It just a lifetime of experiences and a lifetime of interest in pretty much all the weird stuff kind of culminated. I was doing a small podcast for a local community here by where my kids went to school, and my co-host and I, we would talk about local events, local businesses, just local sports. And there were a couple of times that he wasn't able to make the show. So instead of not putting something out that week, I decided to tackle one of the subjects that I thought was really interesting and has always been in my mind, which was paranormal, whether it be UFOs, Bigfoot, Bermuda Triangle, everything, the gateways. And so I did an episode with a local ghost hunting team. And then it presented itself again, and I did one with a couple of Bigfoot researchers from about Middle Michigan. And then the third one he was able to be a part of, and we did an episode where we talked to the state director of Michigan's MUFON. And that was, they were well received for the limited listener base that we had. Like I said, this was for a local community. So, 2 towns away, they didn't give a shit what we were talking about because we were pretty much talking about our town. And after I did that third one, he got real busy with coaching and a couple of different sports and other things he had going on, training for triathlons and stuff. And I just decided, since I had the equipment, I said, I'm going to try this, just kind of a little side project and see what I can throw together. And I don't know, I told myself I wasn't going to release an episode unless I had 10 episodes in the bank.
Oh, wow. And
I got to about episode 6 and it just got the better of me. I couldn't take it anymore. So I decided to release it. And it was on one of the free the free hosting sites. I forget which one. And, you know, in that first month, I had 34 listens, and 15 of those was probably me and a couple of friends, my son, my daughter. You know, that pretty much made it up. And honestly, I swear I never had any kind of misgivings or thought that would ever get past like maybe 10 or 12 episodes. And, you know, I'm at somewhere around 170 now, I think.
Yeah.
Been 3.5 years, and somehow or another, I've worked myself into the top 1% of podcasts heard in the world. So that's still a big number of, that's a pool of a lot of podcasts, but out of 8 million or 4 million, whatever it is, active podcasts in the world, I'm really grateful. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And the reviews are amazing for your show as well.
people have been very kind. They have been
Yeah.
very kind.
Yeah. And you have a lot of your guests are freaking amazing. I mean, there was this one guy on your show pretty recently. He also has a podcast, I think. It's called like Where the Weird Ones Are or something like that.
Yeah. Kevin, try to remember how to pronounce his name. Sapiel, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
he was a great guest.
Yeah. I enjoyed that one
Actually,
very much.
yeah, he talked about some weird shit like mushroom people, something I had never heard of. I don't know. I think he was full of shit, to be honest with you. But you know, I have to say, maybe 3 or 4 days after that episode aired,
Yeah.
I had a woman who is a retired pulmonologist. I think she was a pulmonologist. And she emailed me that she had a experience with 3 people in her like close-knit circle throughout her lives
Yeah.
who went through the same thing with the glasses of the person ended up like waking up and not needing glasses again.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yep. I was going to forward you the email, but I knew that we were going to be doing this, so I figured I'd bring it up to you.
That's interesting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and she'd gone into she said her name, or she, when she mentioned her mom,
Yeah.
she spelled it M-U-M. So I'm going to assume that she's from the UK.
Yeah.
Or she was from Australia, because at one point in there she said her and her partner had gone to some kind of a holistic healing thing in Melbourne, Australia. It wasn't clear if they traveled to Australia or maybe they lived there. I'm not sure how they say mom over there. If it's mom, then maybe they live there. But yeah, so she had 3 people in her life. Her husband,
that's a lot of freaking people.
yeah, her husband. Then late in life, before the mom passed away, they had a conversation about her dad, and her mom told her that her dad had gone into the woods with a buddy of his to just go for a walk and shoot the shit because they hadn't seen each other in a while. Didn't return till the next morning, and said that he had lost his glasses while he was out in the woods, and they'd been looking for it all night, and then it got too dark to get out, so they just hunkered down and came back in the morning, but never found his glasses and never needed them again. So yeah, strange, because that's something I've never heard of. I've never heard of eyesight like correcting itself for no good apparent reason. So
Yeah. That, I've never really heard of it either, except for my own self. And I almost wondered like if I was just crazy. And like I said when I was on your show, like I kind of thought that I was kind of losing my mind. And so I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my sister, who was the closest person to me at the time, and she was out there with me. Again, she didn't see anything, but like it was just, yeah, it took me until I started doing this podcast to actually talk about it. And it's just, it's it's amazing. It's amazing to connect with some people, because some people have, like, they bring up fairy lore and stuff, and now that, since I've, since somebody else has heard me talk about it, and they have something kind of similar. I mean, obviously they didn't see mushroom people, or at least that they know of.
Yeah.
They might have had their memory swapped, like
Swiped.
swiped. Yeah, there we go. Um and they're just like, I don't know, but my eyes are good. My eyes are good now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting, because I know, like, consuming mushrooms is really good for your brain cells. It helps regenerate brain cells and cognitive like.
Are we talking psilocybin type mushrooms, or are you talking
No,
about
just
like regular?
edible,
Okay.
just regular edible. Like portobello and lion's mane are really good for
Really?
all of that. And lion's mane, I guess, is good for testosterone as well. So get you some
So what if
lion's mane.
so what if those so what if those mushrooms that you saw
Mm-hmm.
released a spore
Yeah.
when you got into its area? And what if those mushrooms were some type of psychedelic? All right. And
Yeah.
and you felt the effects of the psychedelic, and the mushrooms came to life, right? Just hypothetical.
Yeah.
But what if the spores got into your eyes? And if there is any truth to the mushrooms healing eyesight, and if the spores got into your eyes, that's how it could have been absorbed by your body from the fluid in your eyes to make you hallucinate, to think you saw the mushrooms moving and talking. But that's actually what happened that corrected your eyesight.
That's a good way to look at it too, man. Dude, you have I'll be like fucking honest with you. Out of the not 100 people, but a good amount of people that I've talked to, told this story to, so far you've given me like two really good perspectives. Number one, that one, and then the one that possibly I made up a story because I didn't want to tell my mom that I broke my glasses.
Right.
So
Yeah.
those two perspectives are pretty good freaking perspectives, and not one that neither one had I even thought of or would have ever put into context for myself.
That's what
And
I'm here
nobody
for,
else
man.
has brought it up.
That's what I'm
Everybody.
here. I'm here to help facilitate the needs of you, the individual. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Oh man. But anyways, enough about me. Let's talk about Erick. So you've had experiences your whole life. Do you recall the first ever experience that you ever had?
I do, and let me preface this by saying I've done this on a couple of episodes. I did this with Tony Merkel, where I actually like opened Pandora's box and talked about the majority, if not all, of the experiences I've had. And there is something kind of disconcerting about doing that, because you run into people, or you'll interview somebody who has just this laundry list of things that have happened to them in their life, right? And as much as you want to remain open-minded, and as much as you want to give that person a chance to tell their story and not be biased and not be judgmental, you know, at a point, it's like, all right, man, just how much have you had happen in your life? Because, but when I go back and I first took inventory of all the things that I've had happen. Now, let me say that this isn't stuff that is necessarily happening day to day or week to week. I just turned 59 yesterday, so I've had years of these things happening. All right. there does seem to be a grouping where when things are kind of popping off, they tend to happen in a row.
Yeah.
But then you can go, years without having anything happen. So when I talk about these things, the first thing I remember, and I've been obsessed with UFOs since I was literally 5 years old. And my proof of that is that there was a movie that came out. It was called Chariots of the Gods. It was based on a book by Eric Van Daniken. So if any of you people are fans of Ancient Aliens, you'll recognize that name. So in 1970, Chariots of the Gods came out. And I was born in 65. So naturally, that makes me 5 years old. I was so obsessed with the topic of UFOs, the Nazca lines, crop circles, all that stuff, that I begged and pleaded with my parents to take me to see that movie. And they wouldn't do it. So I ended up convincing my grandma, who was babysitting me at one time, to take me to see it. Now, this is how much times have changed. This, probably late 50s, maybe early 60s, grandmother takes 5-year-old grandson to a public theater, excuse me, and flat out falls asleep while we're watching this movie. And I looked over at her in the seat beside me, and I was thinking to myself, I can't believe that you're sleeping through this, because it was so interesting. Now, at 5, how much of that could I have really understood?
Yeah.
This is going to sound arrogant, but I'm a smart guy, and I was a smart kid. School was really pretty easy for me. But at 5 years old, to have enough of an understanding of what I was watching to continue to be interested in it, and was like, oh my God, I can't get enough of this. That's really strange to me. Am I saying I was abducted by UFOs when I was, am I a starseed? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I do find it odd that I was that wrapped up into it at that age, because we didn't have streaming services. We didn't have iPads. We didn't have cell phones that we could look up stuff about UFOs every 5 minutes that we wanted to. I was not aware of the history of UFOs. At that time, I'm sure I didn't know anything about Roswell or anything. So why was I so obsessed with UFOs? Why did I think it was so interesting and so cool? I have no idea. That's always been kind of weird to me. At around 7, 8, maybe 9, I've always liked horror movies. I've always liked the weekend creature features, whether they were on in the afternoon on a Saturday or whether they were on at 8:00 at night on, one of the public access channels. Just always liked scary movies, and they scared the hell out of me. So as long as it was daylight, I was fine. But dude, when it was time to go to bed, I was shitting my pants, and literally believed that everything that could be outside my bedroom window was out there waiting for me to go to bed. Whether it was Bigfoot, whether it was aliens, Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy, Loch Ness Monster, any of that stuff. It was all right outside my bedroom window waiting for me to go to bed.
Love a good mystery that leaves you wanting more? Check out my podcast. Hi, I'm Kadra, the host of Perplexity, a Mystery Podcast. I tell tales every single week that have left me perplexed. You'll hear true crime cases, mysterious disappearances, learn about cults, hear baffling sightings of cryptids, chilling paranormal encounters, and even dark and weird history. I release new episodes every Wednesday, and you can listen anywhere podcasts are available. I'm also on Patreon, and you can even watch me on YouTube. Perplexity, a Mystery Podcast. Stories that will leave you perplexed.
So the only way that I was able to actually go to sleep was that my bedroom was at the end of the hallway, right across from my parents' bedroom. And I could not sleep with my door shut. I had to leave it open about, 6-8 inches. And the hallway light had to be left on. Obviously my parents stayed up later than I did. So when I would go to bed, that hallway light would have to be on so that I would feel comfortable enough to, shut my eyes and eventually fall asleep. So at around that, probably 8 or 9 years old, I ended up rolling over and looking at the doorway, and there was a shadow person standing there. There was a silhouette. Let me say that. There was a silhouette standing at the door to my bedroom, looking into my bedroom. Couldn't see any color. It was all just a dark black, if you will, silhouette. But we were a 3-person family. It was my mom, my dad, and myself. I was an only child. And I knew that my mom and dad, I knew what they looked like. And my mom was, kind of on the shorter side, a little bit roly-poly, had short curly hair. That wasn't her silhouette. And my dad was not much taller than her, but had a very distinctive flat top haircut every day of his life that I knew him. It wasn't his silhouette. This was a tall, thin, not unnaturally thin. It was just a tall, thin man, angular shoulders, and kind of wavy hair. Not necessarily long, not super short. But I recognized it as not being either of my parents. And my parents weren't big entertainers at the time, so it wasn't somebody else at the house. Scared the hell out of me. There was something standing there in the doorway staring at me while I was asleep. Closed my eyes, kept them shut for what seemed like a while, opened it back up, and it was gone. To my knowledge, that was the only experience that I ever had with a shadow person. It wasn't until I started doing this show a couple of years ago, I interviewed Karen Tatro, who's a well-known psychic out on the kind of out around your area. She's done several things at the Conjuring House. She must be very, very close to you. And as a thank you, because ours ran really long, and I ended up turning it into a 2-part episode. She emailed me and said, "Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate, you letting me get the word out there about me and what I do." She said, "I'd love to do a reading for you as a thank you if you're open to that." Now, the backstory to that was, yes, I would love to have a reading. And the reason I was adamant about having the reading was because on a couple of different occasions, shortly after my divorce, I was on a date. We went to a little beach town, and as we were walking towards the beach, there was literally a shingle hanging that was like psychic medium, and it said open. Well, the woman I was with, she said, "That's what I'm getting you for your birthday. Come on, let's go." And I'm like, "Nah." And she's like, "Come on, let's go." So we walked off the sidewalk, up this really narrow stairway to the second floor. And sure enough, there was another sign on the door that looked just like the one that was the shingle that was hanging out there. And it had one of those little peepholes in the door. And we knocked on it, and you could hear somebody walk and came to the door. I was fully expecting them to open it, and you could see the light through the peephole got blocked out. So somebody was obviously looking, and they didn't answer the door. So we knocked again, and then you could see light through the peephole again. So whoever it was walked away, and she looked at me. She goes, "Oh, that's weird. You would think if they already had somebody in there that was, that they were reading or whatever, that there would be a sign that said, occupied, or, come back in a half hour or something like that." And there wasn't anything. And we knocked one more time and nothing. So I'm like, all right, well, we tried, So I didn't get my psychic reading.
Yeah.
And then several years later, I was with a group that was at like some kind of I guess you'd call it, like some kind of a art fair. There were food trucks. There were people that had sculptures. There were people that made jewelry.
Oh,
There
wow.
were just vendors of all kinds of different kind. And there was a couple of vendors side by side that were like metaphysical type stuff. And the one had a sign that said they do readings. And so one of the ladies that I was with in the group, she and I walked over, and as we got up to the table, the woman had looked like she was engaged in a conversation with somebody, and she looked over and she smiled at us and went to like put her finger up, like, hang on a second, or I'll be with you in a minute, or something like that. And she finished her conversation, and then she looked back at us, and she looks squarely at me in the eye. And she goes, "I'm sorry, honey, I'm not going to do that." And I was like, "What?" And she looked at the lady who I was in the same group with, but we weren't together. She goes, "I'll read. I'm sorry, I'm not going to read you." And I was like,
Oh.
I'm like, wait a minute now. I said, all right, I respect that. But I said, this is kind of weird, because now this is the second time that I've gotten snubbed as far as a reading. I said, "Can you like at least tell me why?" And she goes, "I'd really rather not." And so I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah. Come on, man. Give me a little, elaborate just a tiny bit.
Now I got a little bit of, kind of wondering what the, so,
yeah.
So here's the thing. I'm very intolerant of bullshit, and I have a keen sense for bullshit. So either she recognized that I looked like maybe she wasn't going to be able to pull one over on me, or she was legit and there was some reason that she saw that she didn't want to get involved with. I don't know.
Yeah.
So back to Karen. When I talked to her during the reading after the show, and she was doing the reading for me, she said you've got a shadow person that follows you. Now, the shadow person that I saw as a child, I never told anybody about it, because had I told my parents, I guarantee you they would have told me, no more monster movies, no more books, you're done. This is getting to be too much. And I didn't want to lose that out of my life, because I really enjoyed that stuff. So I kind of suffered silently with that. Never told anybody about it until she brought this up in that reading. And I told her what I just told you about how it was standing there. And she's like, it's very strange, because she's like, I usually can tell, like, at least get a sense of where these things are from. And she's like, I have no idea what this is. She says, it looks like a man, shape wise. She said she was seeing him as all very dark and no color to him, no distinguishing features other than tall, thin. And, so she basically described him Which, okay, how many people are tall and thin? There's a lot of you fuckers out there. There's a lot of, so, I mean, tall and thin, short and fat, somewhere in between, normal looking, with those three guesses, you can cover a lot of territory with that. So, I was like, okay. But then she brought up that I could see people turning away from you because of not understanding what they're seeing. And that one kind of hit me like,
yeah.
Oh, well, all right, maybe, but then she went on to describe some spirits that were more recognizable that were around me. And she described my mom. But my mom was still alive.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. And she described her to a T. Not some physically to some extent, she short, round, animated, talked with her hands a lot, which my mom did. But a lot of women talk with their hands, so, I'm always taking this stuff with a grain of salt. And I let her keep going. Excuse me. And I just couldn't get past that, Now my great grandmothers died when I was very young, so I never met them. So I don't know if my mom favored one of them, perhaps she looked like them, acted like them, picked up their mannerisms. So I was thinking, maybe it could be a great grandmother. Maybe this could all be complete and total horse shit.
Yeah.
But then I kind of popped it on her that my mom was still alive. And that kind of stunned her.
Wow. I because
But here's the thing.
I would okay, hold on. Just real quick. I would have thought like from so far with the story of her saying this, I would have thought maybe your mom's just like praying extra hard for you. And so her spiritual energy is present with you. But
here's the thing.
Yeah.
My
Go ahead.
mom at that time was starting to show significant signs of dementia.
Oh no.
And I was her caregiver. I moved in to her home and took care of her and kept her out of a nursing home for as long as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
Then the rabbit hole opened up of consciousness and spirituality. And if my mom's spirit could have been split between both sides because her mind had already started to go.
Mm.
And Karen's response to that was she was sure that was a possibility. So,
oh man, that must have been hard to hear.
Well, I mean, at the time she was still alive. Dementia sucks. Alzheimer's sucks.
Right.
It's terrible. It's terrible for the people that are going through it. It's terrible for the people that are, around to see it happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was really interesting. And then we kind of delved into the idea that, if I sit at this podcast desk and I do my job and I do my work and I do my interviews and everything, I'm shedding skin cells. Every time I touch something, I'm leaving a part of me behind, right? There's
Right.
part of me everywhere here.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the idea of an object being haunted, is it possible that hauntings of objects that people pick up from a garage sale or an estate sale or from an antique shop could still have the remains are our spirit drawn to what remains of our physical life? And if there's my skin cells or a piece of my hair that's part of this table, is that a magnet for my spirit to kind of cling on to? And is that why things become ultimately haunted objects? So it led to some really cool conversations. And you know, the thing about doing this kind of a show is you have to be open-minded, right? You got to be open-minded. But if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. So as well as being open-minded, you have to have a really good backbone of critical thought, because critical thought will get you past some things that when people are trying to bullshit you.
Yeah.
And you know, speaking of that, and I know this is kind of digressing from my experiences, but I think this stuff is important to talk about. And so it's been my experience, and I got hammered by somebody. I think it might have been on my YouTube channel. Hammered by somebody for how dare you not believe what these people are saying. And you know, okay, I mean, I profess my show to be a safe space, and come on, I don't ambush anybody. I don't ever flat out call anybody out for being a liar or a hoaxer or anything like that. You know, I'll ask questions in a way that might tend to back somebody into a corner intentionally. And if they can walk themselves out of the corner, fucking good on them. But if they can't walk themselves out of that corner, then that's where I let it lay. And my audience is discerning enough and smart enough to know that they weren't able to walk themselves out of the corner. So I don't need to call anybody out on what I think might be horseshit. I let them do that themselves. And I guess to say that, it's a shame, because I do think that a lot of people have an experience. It might be a mundane experience. It might not be something earth-shattering. It might not be something that is going to go viral, you know, on Sasquatch Chronicles or on the Confessionals, or, you know, and be, you know, blow up as this huge episode. But they have the need to get it off their chest, because they don't understand it. It stayed with them. It bothers them. They don't know what to do with it. But in that, if they're too critical of their own experience, then I think it is fairly easy and somewhat common for them to start to overlay some other things and to add to the experience, instead of it just being X, Y, Z. I don't know why it happened. I don't know how it happened. It doesn't make any sense. I've never figured it out, but X, Y, and Z happened, and that's my story.
Yeah.
But I think a human's need to want to be understood and want to be believed might push somebody into being disingenuous by elaborating or adding to the story to make it maybe a little more convincing. And if they get somebody to believe this, then in reality, they are actually believing your experience, but it's only because you added in all these other things, right? So it's kind of like a safeguard for them. So I think people are guilty of doing that to some extent.
For sure.
not to take anything away from their original and real experience. But I'm like, who the fuck are we to lie to anyway? I mean, what do we matter? So, if you needed to get this off your chest, get it off your chest and just be 100% honest about it. You don't have to, you don't have to turn it into some kind of insane story. I mean, I had an experience 12 or 14 years ago. I was hunting. It was, barely outside of a neighborhood, maybe 12 to 1500 yards away from the high school that my kids went to. And something paced me out of the woods as I was leaving. I have no idea what it was. I had flashlight.
Damn.
I was aiming my flashlight into the tree line as I was walking back to the car. The whole thing started out, I had permission to hunt this property, and it was literally a person's yard. Okay. It was a rural yard. So it was about an acre wide and probably 3 acres deep. And I had permission to hunt that property. It was backed up by a hunter's a farmer's field. And there were, when I would go there hunting turkey, there would be 50 plus turkey that would come out of the roost. So, it was, there were houses, they weren't that, maybe an acre apart. But there was a lot of wildlife there. So all that to say that, there was some component of something being able to hide there. And I got multiple deer off that property. So, but the piece of property directly beside it, I did not have permission to hunt. And where I would position my blind or my tree stand was right near where the termination of the property line was. And one night, it was, probably 20 minutes before last chance to take a shot. And I put my weapon down and I walked onto the property that I did not have permission to be on. It was the most interesting piece of property. You had these thick pines that were there. That's where all the turkey would roost in the morning or through the night. Then you had this regular swatch of woods that was pretty much oak trees and stuff like that. A lot of scrub brush down low. And then he had this little path, and I think the path was two different things. I think it was worn down by animals as a trail, but then people from that property also used it. So it widened out a little bit, and it was more of a walking path. But just on the other side of that, you had a very narrow swatch of pine trees again. And then it went into wetlands because there was a small creek that ran through there, and you would have these tall reeds, and you could see where they were all matted down, and that's where the deer would bed at night. So, I was always looking at that area because I was trying to find the right position for me to be in on the other piece of property for when they're making that transition from this property to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had no intent of, I wasn't trying to poach on their land. Like I said, I left my weapon behind. I just was really interested because there was so much going on this property. So I walked into the property about 40, maybe 50 yards. And I got to the point where I could see the corner of the house through an opening. And I was like, oh shit, that's far enough. I don't want anybody to see me. I don't want anybody to get pissed off. So I turned around and I started walking back to my property. And as I did, I started to hear crunch, 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 crunch behind me. And I immediately, my balls went up into my throat, and I was like, fuck, it's the landowner.
Yeah.
And I purposely left my hands down at my side so that he could see that I didn't have a weapon. You know, I wasn't hunting. I was trespassing, but I wasn't hunting. And I stopped. And when I stopped, it took one or maybe two steps more, and it stopped. And I just kind of took a deep breath, and I was just waiting to get somebody just start reaming my ass for being on their property. And it didn't happen. And so, like, in my head, I'm thinking, do I turn around and be like, oh man, I'm really sorry, I didn't realize I was on your property? Or, oh man, I'm really sorry, I know I shouldn't be on here, but you know, it's such an interesting piece of property. He ain't gonna buy that shit. So I just stopped and I waited, and he never said anything. So I started walking again, making sure that I had my arms down at my side so he could see I didn't have my weapon. And as soon as I started walking again, I hear in the leaf litter behind me. I stopped again. And I'm like, I just took my arms from my side and I just kind of went, like, just kind of lifted them up a little bit, like almost like shrugging my shoulders, like, come on, dude, what are you going to do? And nothing. So then I started walking again, and I hear and then it fucking hit me, dude. Hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I was like, oh my God, this is a fucking 10-point buck, and he's following me back to my fucking hunting spot. I'm like, I probably got deer estrus on me from the season before, and he can smell it, you know? And I'm like, and now I'm shaking. I'm like, oh my God, this thing is going to be a mount for sure. It's going to be a freaking state record. You know, I'm barely on 3 acres of property, and you know, he's going to follow me back to my stand, and I'm going to be able to reach, because I was on the ground on that deer blind. And so now I'm going through the process in my head. I'm like, all right, I'm going to stop again. I'm going to let him stop, and then I'm going to start up again. He's going to keep following me. And by that time, I should be at the point where with my left arm, I can reach down and grab the barrel of my gun, my shotgun. And then I'm going to raise the barrel up along my chest until I can get my right hand around the trigger, flip the safety off, and then in one sharp turn, I am going to swivel at the waist. I'm not even going to take a step. I'm going to swivel at the waist, and he's going to be standing there right behind me, 10 feet away. And he's going to be close enough that I can take the shot through his breastbone of his chest, and it's still going to drop him. So that's what I do. And I reach down, I grab the barrel of the gun, and I start to bring it up. And I just get my hand to the notch where your firing hand goes. And I just started wrapping my fingers around the bottom of it, and I hear this. And I turn, and I'm like, the fuck? There's nothing. I heard a voluminous exhale of air, and I heard a very distinctive thump thump. I didn't hear thump 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 thump. I didn't hear thump 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 thump. I just heard thump thump. There wasn't a twig, there wasn't a leaf, there wasn't anything that was moving, like something had run past it. There was no leaf settling back to the ground like something had just run through there. There was nothing, dude. And I missed the biggest 10 point of my life. I mean, 10, 12 point. I mean, this it was a state record. I was sure of it, you know, and that's what's going through my head. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I blew this. So, you know, I kind of collected myself. I took a couple more steps back onto the property that I didn't have rights to be on. And I had my weapon. I had it up to my shoulder, and I was scanning, thinking I was going to see some big ass white tail sticking out from behind a tree, or I was going to see the racks, on the other side of the tree. Nothing moving, nothing at all. And I'm like, fuck, where could it have gone?
Right. Yeah.
So I grabbed my stuff, it was probably 15 yards to get out of the woods. And I made a left-hand turn and just followed the tree line all the way back to where my car was parked. And like I said, it was maybe 2.5, 3 acres away. Still a little bit of light out, but for the most part, call it dark. And I hear this thing walking to the left side of me, and it sounds close, dude. It sounds very close, like, maybe 10 feet into the trees.
Yeah.
And my son and I, we have fetishes about knives and flashlights. I can't go to Menards and not buy a flashlight that's hanging at the counter as you're checking out. I mean, I got more goddamn flashlights than I know what to do with. So
my uncle's the same way. When I was growing up as a kid, going hunting and stuff, he'd be like, "Hey, check out this new flashlight I got." I was like, "You just got a new flashlight yesterday." He's like, "Yeah, but look at this one."
Yeah, but this one's better.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I always had a good flashlight with me. So I pulled it out, put it in. I'm carrying my gun in my right hand, and I took the flashlight with my left hand. It clicked on the bottom, and I just whipped my wrist around, and I was aiming it into the woods, and it was lighting it up. It was a good light. It was lighting it up.
Yeah.
And I could hear it. I could hear the leaf litter. I could hear it crunch, 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 crunch. I'm looking at the low-lying, bushes, the low-lying saplings that are, maybe 18, 20 inches tall. I'm looking for some kind of movement, right? Because if there's something walking through there, it's got to be brushing into something. And if it is, then that thing has got to be wiggling or moving, right? Couldn't see anything. Kept shining it, kept looking. I'm like, I could hear it. It was beyond clear, right? There was nothing in my mind other than that fucking deer is walking within my eyesight, but I can't see it. And it followed me about 3/4 of the way back to my car until we got to the back part of the yard that had lights. And when I walked into the lit area near the garage, I didn't hear it anymore. And, for a long time, I missed a hell of a buck. Now, I was already into Bigfoot, and I already knew quite a bit about Bigfoot, as far as documentaries and, YouTube channels and finding Bigfoot. And, I was watching all of it. At the time, it never hit my brain that could have been Bigfoot, because I'm in Southwest Michigan. I'm like 12 to 1,500 yards away from a public high school. It's not like it's up in the UP. But it's never left me. And the more I think about it, and the more personal experiences that I heard people relaying on shows like Sasquatch Chronicles, or, these woods are haunted, and, different shows. And it's like, I didn't see it, so I can't say it was, but I know the difference between what it sounds like when a dog is walking through leaves with 4 legs than 2 feet. And when that thing was following me back to my stand, to my deer blind, I was fully convinced that it was the landowner until it hit me that, oh my God, this is a deer. Because ultimately that's what I was out there for. I was there to shoot a deer, to harvest a deer and to
Right.
come home with some meat. So I think that was like a natural flip to go to, but I don't know. I still, to this day, I have no idea what it was. I do remember having a buddy of mine come out there prior to this happening. I had found a rub, and there were shavings on the ground from the rub.
Yeah.
It was almost like somebody took a sharp knife and just whittled away at this thing, and it was all piled up on the ground. But that rub was 2 feet above my outstretched arm. There's no way I could have, it was kind of scrub brush, so you were able to grab it and pull it down.
Yeah.
But the guy that I called out there, he's been hunting deer for since he was probably 12 years old. And I'm like, will a good sized buck stand up on its hind legs, and can it reach that high with its rack? Would it be doing that? And he's like, typically when you get a scrape like that, or a rub on the tree, they're putting their head down, and they're doing it, closer to the ground than near the top of the tree. So I don't know what the hell it was, but it was weird, and it's never left me.
It is weird, especially the night part when it's, matching you. And I would have been, I might have ran, I think, if I can't identify a noise at night, especially in the woods, I'm going to either walk a lot faster or I'm running.
Well, here's a little bit of ego comes into it, because I'm standing there, I'm carrying a shotgun, right?
Right.
So,
That's true.
I'm certainly not expecting there to be a person who's out there looking to do me harm, because how relative it is to neighbors, and it just doesn't seem like it would have been a smart place for somebody to try to do something like that. So that didn't really bother me. But my mindset was at the time very much
Deer.
this has got to be a deer.
Yeah, that's true. That makes
So I didn't get scared in the moment, but years later, after I started kind of piecing things together from other experiences that I'd heard, who didn't necessarily see anything, but were probably hearing the peripheral effects of being around these things, that's when it's kind of started getting to me. And then, okay, so still crazy that I might have had a Bigfoot experience, in lower Southwest Michigan, 1,500 yards away from school, less than 2 acres away from houses. And until I had my second episode of uNcomfortable, and I find out that a gentleman that I worked with at a school when I was doing a second job, and I was doing part-time in IT.
Yeah.
I find out that there's this guy at the school who lives 1 street out of the city limits of this town, and he had an experience at his home.
Oh, wow.
And as the crow flies, from where that was to where I was, less than 3 miles.
Oh, snaps.
So, then things really kind of started kind of falling together. Still don't know what it is. Still didn't see it. But a lot of aspects of that, my experience, fall in very good line with a lot of people, other stories and other experiences. So,
yeah.
And then when I decided to start doing Bigfoot and Brews, which is my Bigfoot conference, I hosted in Southwest Michigan, and it's held at Sister Lakes Brewing Company, which is right by Dewey Lake. And the Sister Lakes community, I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's either or. I believe it's a 6-mile radius, and there's 11 small inland lakes. It's very cottage driven, very rental driven. But in 1964, the Dewey Lake Monster was sighted, and it hit the newspaper and got nationwide attention in the summer of 64. I think the first sighting happened June 3rd. And the description of what these people saw, all except one description, all fit the description of a Bigfoot. The one off was one that described it as being soaking wet and looking like it had like lake vegetation, like seaweed or like lily pad stems and stuff sticking out of its fur, but it was soaking wet. Well, there is there is the Penn Swamp system that runs all the way from Dewey Lake area, coincidentally, goes all the way to the area where the gentleman outside of town had his experience.
Wow.
So, and that puts the end of that swamp system, or the closest part of that swamp system, less than 3 miles from where I was. So, yeah, I'm drawing lines from maybe point 1 to point B to, but I mean, what else am I left with? So, I mean,
hearing things, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Historically, we know that they are in this area.
Right. Yep.
And that was 1963, or I'm sorry, 1964. June 3rd of 64 was the first sighting. I was born in 65. I grew up hearing about the Dewey Lake Monster, but as a kid, it was kind of your parents, like, you better behave or Dewey Lake Monster is going to get you, that type of thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later in life when I really started getting into the topics that I found out that this was like a legitimate thing. It wasn't just some old wives' tale or, made up story, that it literally happened, and the town was turned upside down because there was a alcohol distributor. Back at that time, there were 3 alcohol distributors in that area, and one of them, the one that had been doing the best for themselves, making the most money, they offered $1,000 bounty for anyone that could bring this thing in. And as soon as that hit the wire and it became public, the town was inundated with carloads and truckloads of every kind of goofball you could imagine, with hunting rifles, butterfly nets, fishing rods, baseball bats. Everybody and their brother was going to try to get that $1,000, and they all went to the Sister Lakes area to try to find this thing. Got to the point that it was so bad that it was disrupting everything in the town that the police had to go to the distributor and say, you've got to rescind the bounty because we got to get these people out of here. So, yeah, I don't know.
That's super. First of all, that's pretty cool to connect that sighting through the swamp system and bring it all the way back to where you had this experience. That's super cool. First of all, obviously, like with the Native American lore out in that area, the Great Lakes region and stuff, we all know that there are this basically Bigfoot Sasquatch lore with the tribes across America, across there's lore across the seas and stuff like that. So they're out there. If not now, they were at one point in time, but which leads me into my question on this part that I love to ask people, like, where do you stand on what, I guess, where do you speculate Bigfoot to be, like flesh and blood, paranormal woo woo, or are you
Okay,
more
first of
like
all,
a little bit?
I think Bigfoot are more of a people than an animal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, there is enough anecdotal evidence in people's experiences and stories and how they relay their interactions with these things that I think they are probably more closely related to the tribe of humans that took a different path, that decided to stay away from the concrete and the windows and all that, and just decided to continue to live a very clean life. And that's where my head's at.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about the woo-woo stuff, I think, and this kind of segues back to what we were talking about before we recorded, Ron Moorhead.
Yeah.
Ron does not shy away from there being some what many would call woo or kind of metaphysical aspects to these things. So I guess when it comes to that type of stuff, I think that us as human beings in a much earlier version of ourselves, you know how some people say they have the sixth sense, right? Or a
Yeah.
woman's intuition, or
Mm-hmm.
you can sense things, right? Everybody, probably most everybody, has had at least one experience like that in their life.
Those gut feelings.
So what if when we were sleeping around fires and wrapped up with the skin of some animal and, having to sleep with one eye open while the rest of our tribe slept, and we had to pay attention with our ears, our senses, that there was nothing that was in the form of a predator coming out of the woods and is going to come over and pick up our baby that's all swaddled up in deer skin and then run off with it and eat it. There was, I truly believe that before, because look, we've got four walls around us. We've got doors that lock. We've got windows that we can latch shut. We have all these things that we don't have to worry about for the most part. We don't have to worry about outside external forces affecting us when we are in our domicile, right? So if we haven't had to use those senses to keep us safe, those gut feelings, if we haven't had to use those for centuries and generations and eons, thousands of years even, I think there's a pretty good chance that we've lost some of what we were able to do. Sometimes I make the argument that, they say we're evolving. And I think even though we're evolving technologically and stuff like that, on a physical plane, I think we might be devolving. I think we might be becoming less of what we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't have those senses anymore, maybe Bigfoot's just have an innate ability to have those senses, and that they're extremely heightened because they use them constantly. Maybe that's why they can, know we're coming before we even get there.
Yeah.
Maybe they're hearing the door close when we're getting out of our car before we walk 1.5 miles into the woods, and they know you're there already. So many reports of people that see lights in the woods, balls of light in the woods, either prior to or post sighting or experience with Bigfoots. This is what gets really interesting, and I love having this conversation with my friend Archbishop Christina Rake, because not only is she an archbishop for the Catholic Church, she's a paranormal investigator. So,
Hey everyone, I'm Nicole.
And I'm Gabrielle.
And we are the hosts of the Spiritual Sisters podcast.
Join us every week as we discuss all the spiritual topics like astrology, mediumship, psychic insights, and so much more.
We are often joined by others we have met along our spiritual journey who are well versed in many of these areas.
Get ready for enlightening discussions and interviews and personal experiences that we hope will expand your mind and get you thinking outside of the box.
Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just beginning your spiritual journey, there's something here for everyone.
Check us out every Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts. See you then.
Bye.
What are these other components that are happening? You know, you hear people out in the woods and you're hearing wood knocks, right? So everybody assumes, as did I for a long time, that Bigfoot is standing out there with this massive piece of timber and he's just taking, Babe Ruth swings at the side of a tree and making a large crack, right? There's no evidence that that's what's happening. There's no photographs of a picture of a Bigfoot swinging a bat, hitting the side of a tree. We're hearing something and we're making an assessment based on the sound that it sounds like a piece of wood hitting a piece of wood. But if you go out into the woods and you try to pick up a good strong limb and whack a tree with it, you're going to be very disappointed in the way that sounds. It's not going to sound like a Bigfoot knock. The only way that you can really consistently get that same tonal value to that knock is if you take two pieces of very hard wood, two old wooden baseball bats and knock them together. And then you get that, that resonates through the woods. So if we don't know for sure that Bigfoots are knocking, and we don't understand why there's balls of light in the woods when people are claiming to have these experiences with them, then we shift gears and we go and we investigate a haunted location. How many times do you watch a ghost show or watch a YouTube channel that has a legitimate paranormal group that's doing investigations and they catch an orb? Well, what's an orb? An orb is a small ball of light that is generating its own light, and it's moving around free of any constraints. It's doing what it wants to do. So you got orbs in haunted locations, and you have balls of light out in the woods with Bigfoot. Okay, kind of similar. Now, what's another thing that's very common when you go into a haunted location? You hear knocks on the wall. You hear knocks against a door. You hear knocks against a wood dresser or something like that. Well, okay, so now you're getting knocks in a haunted location and you're getting knocks out in the woods. We don't have any pictures of Bigfoot hitting a tree and we don't have any pictures of a ghost standing next to a wall going rap, rap, rap. So then what does that leave you with? So maybe these sounds, these lights are the peripheral effects of something coming into our perception. Okay. I hate to use the word portal. It annoys the hell out of me, but maybe a portal opens up and these things, maybe there's a thinning of the veil where either they're able to, for lack of better terms, reach into our perception. I hate to say reality because I think they all are a part of reality. I think they all exist. So either they can reach into our perception or we're passing somewhere where the veil is thin and we can see we can perceive them in their natural environment. So many of these, even with UFO encounters, you have people that report hearing mechanical noises like car doors slamming or gears grinding and stuff out in the middle of the woods when they're having these experiences with Bigfoot. What do people report when they have extraterrestrial encounters? They're hearing odd mechanical whirring and noises and clanks and stuff like that. So, you know, whereas 20 years ago I would have said Bigfoot and haunted locations or ghosts, and UFOs are 100% completely separate and have nothing to do with each other, and no, Bigfoot are not UFOs, puppy dogs that they let out and, you know, go around, piss around in the woods, and then, you know, it's not their watchdogs or anything. Now, you know, my thoughts have changed considerably on the existence of extraterrestrials and and UFOs, where before I was firmly convinced that these things must be traveling a great distance, coming from another galaxy or another universe, or, you know, somewhere outside of our world. I think now my perspective has changed in that I think they're here all the time. I don't think that we can perceive them all the time. I don't think they are readily within our ability to view them. But there is some component, something that happens where they become phased into our perception. You know, I mean, there's videos of lights in the sky over I think Edmonton, Canada, where these things are flying around and then they just blink out. Well, are they blinking out? Is there a little alien dude in there that flips the light switch off and says, okay, enough people saw us, we're going to shut the lights off now? You know, because think about, if you were an extraterrestrial civilization and you were coming here and trying to observe us unannounced, and in, you know, some manner of invisibility, or, you know, to not be noticed, would you make your ship glow bright so that if somebody looked up, they're going to see it traveling across the sky and go, wow, that's moving kind of fast, and that's weird, how does something like that turn 90 degrees? You know, it doesn't make any sense to me. Either one, they want to be noticed, or two, they're illuminated because of some different component. You know, like maybe there's some kind of bioluminescence to the materials they use to build their craft, and when they come into our perception, into our environment, maybe they glow and they're like, ah, fuck, it's glowing again, we got to get out of here. You know, I don't know. But when you start putting all the things together with, you know, haunted locations, what people report with Bigfoot, what people report with, you know, seeing UFOs or extraterrestrials, or, you know, I think probably I'm more in lines now with what, you know, some of the David Grush said in the congressional hearings, is that I think these things are, and this sounds so freaky to say, but, you know, ultra dimensional. I mean, science has proven that there's more than 3 dimensions. You know, what are they, like 11 or 13 dimensions now that are recognized as being factual. You think about our visual acuity. We can only see in a certain frequency. We can't see ultraviolet. We can't see infrared. We can't see. We have a very narrow spectrum of sight in the human eye. Yeah, and there's a lot of things to the left of that spectrum and a lot of things to the right of the spectrum that we can't perceive. Sound is another thing. Our spectrum of hearing, we can only hear up to a certain point before it becomes a dog whistle and we can't hear it, but the dogs can, right? And we can only hear down to a certain subfrequency until it becomes infrasonic. You can now feel it because the vibration of the air around that's being created, you can feel that, but you can't hear it. You know, so I don't know, dude. That's a long way. That's a long. I took the scenic route. My girlfriend, I love hearing me say that. Took the scenic route to say that I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. But, you know, something tells me that, you know, there is some strange components to all of these things, because when you boil it down, a lot of them are very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. I First of all, I love how you went from each kind of different aspect and kind of drew the similarities there. That whole tangent was amazing, and I enjoyed listening to
My
it. So,
rant.
yeah, thank you for that. First of all, second of all, I think there's something to what you just said, to all your points. I do believe, like, I believe that they are all kind of like connected. I do believe that they've, like, when it comes to aliens, I think they've always been here. Um, I don't think they're coming from other galaxies or anything. I think, like you said, they discovered that there's more than just three dimensions. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that every once in a while we're able to see into, you know, into another one where we're getting a glimpse of them and they're
Yeah.
getting a glimpse of us. That all that stuff. And it if you go like the conspiracy route, I do believe that they have done things to us, whether it's like with the lack of a better word, like Illuminati or shadow government or something, where they put forth these like things that kind of like dull our spirit so that our spirit isn't at this vibration to where we can see these things and communicate with these things anymore. I think that that's what we were able used to be able to do. And they
You
have
want to
taken
dig into that rabbit hole. Start looking at food.
food. Okay.
Start looking at food. Start looking at when Alzheimer's and dementia started to become
Yes.
serious problems. Start looking at when diabetes started to explode in this country. Start looking at when processed foods started becoming the mainstay. Start looking at when people started trying in the medical community and the let's say the Food and Drug Administration and the U.S. Agricultural Department.
Yep.
When there started to be a push, okay, remember, you can't eat eggs because eggs are bad and you get too much cholesterol and it's bad for you. So they come up with cereal, right? That's ground from food that was never intended to be eaten by people, and they add a bunch of chemicals to it and they add some sugar to it to make it tasty, and then they put it in a bowl with some milk, and you should eat this stuff even though it's not real food. You should eat this stuff instead of eggs, which actually come out of an animal and have obvious benefits, health benefits to it.
Yes.
Start looking at when that change happened. Go online and look up, Google pictures of New York City in or pictures of like the New York subway, 1930s, or downtown Chicago in the 1920s. And look at the black and white photographs of, just masses of people walking down these city streets. You're not going to see one fat person, dude. Not one. Nobody's fat.
Mm-hmm.
You take a look at what's on the streets today.
It's everybody.
You take a look at how much TV do you watch? And during the time that you're watching, like, normal channels, not streaming, but like normal channel that still has commercials.
Yeah.
How many times an hour you will see a commercial for Ozempic or this or that? I saw some commercial yesterday where it said one of the side effects was a thinning of your perineum. You know what your perineum is? That's your taint. So you take this drug to fix this problem, and it's really just a Band-Aid. It's not actually fixing, it's not getting rid of the problem. It's just trying to make it better. But yet you could sit down and go take a dump and blow your entire bottom half out because this medication is thinning your perineum. But so, and I've come into this because I've recently started doing the carnivore diet. I've eliminated all processed foods. I've eliminated sugar. I've eliminated vegetables. I've eliminated fruits because, and people will say, well, fruits and vegetables are completely natural. Well, maybe if they were all still in their original state, yes. But every fruit and every vegetable that you buy in a grocery store, I don't give a shit if it's Whole Foods or if it's your local supermarket, everything has been designed and engineered for bigger crops and for more volume per square inch that those things are grown in so that the farmer can maximize their profits. And, but what are they using to do that? You can drive by any cornfield and you will see a series of different signs with each field that says, this is such and such seed, and this is such and such seed, and this is such and such seed, Yeah. Well, those are all genetically designed. They're all being crossbred and for maximum output and, to weather droughts and to be resistant to strains of insects and, all this stuff. So my guess is corn back when it was being eaten by First Nations people.
Yeah.
And the Pilgrims, it was probably a lot better for you than what corn is now. Vegetables, they tell you vegetables are good for you, but yet if you look at Brussels sprouts, there's when you break it down chemically, there's 23 known carcinogens within Brussels sprouts.
What? I didn't know that.
There's a book out there that's called Toxic Foods. And it, if you're interested in, I'm not going to go into a huge rant about it, but it's very, very interesting. But fruit, so when you go to the grocery store, you want to buy apples, right? Do you want sweet apples or do you want okay apples? You want sweet apples, right? So you get Honeycrisp. Well, I'll guarantee you that the apples that were growing on the tree 300 years ago did not have the same sugar content that a Honeycrisp apple does. Natural sugar is okay. But when they make these changes and they make everything sweeter, bananas don't look anything like they used to. The banana in its original form, which is much shorter, bigger round in girth, and when you opened it up and you took a bite out of it, there were seeds in it. And now you've just got a sweet, mushy stick of mush, so I really think the point that you're getting at is you were coming at it from more of a conspiratorial, the Illuminati is, programming us to do this. I think it's much more basic. I think it is they are trying to kill us with our food.
Mm-hmm.
In November 1st, I started eating nothing but carnivore, meat only. No fruits, no vegetables, no bread, no salt, or no sugar, just normal, natural. And I've lost 80 pounds. And my arthritis in my hands is gone. The arthritis in my knees is gone. The inflammation in my back, where I have two really messed up discs, is gone. I can finally stand up straight again. I haven't felt this good and this alive in years. And in just barely over 6 months, almost not quite 7 months, completely changed my body.
Wow.
Energy,
That's awesome.
clarity of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I used to have brain fog. It was ridiculous. Not anymore. So, I don't disagree with you. There is probably some component to that.
Yeah.
But I think the far and more outreaching and more far-reaching aspect of that, as far as lowering our vibration, is killing us with the food that we eat.
Food, yeah. The food industry and the drug
Absolutely.
industry and
Yep.
pharmacy, big
Absolutely.
pharma, all of it together,
Follow the
working
money.
together.
Wherever the money's being made.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say though, after talking to you, being on your show, and then had a woman on. She goes, her name's Deplorable Janet, the Deplorable Nation podcast. I don't know if you heard of her or not, but so had her on the show, and she started talking about how she's on the carnivore diet. So I started the carnivore diet 3
Good for
weeks
you,
ago.
man. Good
So
for you.
it's pretty interesting. I mean, I've kind of like stayed away from processed foods anyway, but I was just like, you know what? There's got to be something to this, like when I was on your show, we
Sure.
talked about Jordan Peterson's daughter and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and the results that you're having, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a try. Um, so far I feel more full. I don't have I see candy. So there's a woman at my work that has a jar full of candy, and I used to stand there and eat freaking a bunch of the candies while I was talking to her. I don't even look at it anymore. And that's just a result of like 3 weeks of just me. So
when you
I
eliminate sugar from your diet, you eliminate cravings for sugar.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't really believe that. I just always thought that I was gonna want candy because I do like candy. I mean, everybody likes candy, and that's mainly because of the sugar. The sugar is addictive.
Yep.
And
It
I
is
never thought that I
100%.
would just, be able to look at a bowl full of candy and not want one piece, and I do
How long have
now.
you been doing it?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, you get to 2 months and you will look at that shit and you will just shake your head and be like, I can't believe it took me this long to figure this out.
Yeah. I believe it.
I'd be shocked if you didn't.
Well, Eric, we have reached 8:45, an hour and a half. I know you got some things to do with the old lady. So if you don't mind, one more time, letting everybody know about your podcast and where they can find you.
Okay, my name is Erick Szilagyi. I'm the host of Uncomfortable podcast, and if you look me up on any of the podcast apps, Apple, Spotify, anything, the easiest way to find me is just look up Uncomfortable Erick, Erick, and then you'll see the logo. It's a black and white logo. It's got a lowercase U and an uppercase N, and it's real no frills, just black and white. I'm also on YouTube, Uncomfortable Podcast on YouTube. We have the audio is on there, but also like in the last 7 months, I've been doing a lot of the shows in video format as well. If you're interested, if you're in the Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, or Illinois areas, Sister Lakes area of Dowagiac, Michigan is not too far of a drive for you guys, a couple hours, maybe 3 hours. If you're interested, I'm hosting Bigfoot and Brews and Spirits 2. This is going to be the 3rd year for it, and that is September 14th. If you're interested, you can find tickets and stuff that on my LinkedIn. That'll be everywhere you can find any of my shows. So it's been a lot of fun talking to you. I realize we did not get to the things that you pretty much wanted me to talk about.
It's all right.
But
we can always do a part 2.
I'll extend this. I'd be more than happy to come back on and cover that stuff. But
Perfect.
sometimes it just when you do organic conversations, it just kind of gets away from you. And
yeah, and I've enjoyed listening to you talk. This is a rare one. Every once in a while, I get somebody that they are they just want tell their stories, and they just talking, and I don't need to really ask any questions, and I just kind of like shut the fuck up pretty much and listen. So it's it was fun listening to you talk, man. And I like I said to you when I was on your show, man, if you decided to do audio books, man, I would listen to your voice all day long.
I appreciate that. I've been kind of fortunate here fairly recently. I got to do a voiceover for a video game release that was called Kill It With Fire 2. So
nice.
the premiere for that video game, I got to do the voiceover, and then I've recently done the voice for Fangoria's Chainsaw Awards, 2024 Chainsaw Awards. That'll be this October. So I got to do the voice for that commercial as well. So
that's dope, man. Good for you.
Thank you.
For you.
It's a lot of fun, and I'd be more than happy. Anybody listening, I'd be more than happy to continue down that road. But that's the cool thing about doing this kind of work. I mean, it tends to open doors, and you get to do some really cool things. I probably would never have even entertained the idea of doing my own Bigfoot conference had I not, garnered the listenership and the following that I have with the show. That's led to that. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. And I don't very often get the chance to come on another show. I've done several throughout the years, but it's really nice to be able to just kind of talk. And that's when people learn like where your head is at, I think, more than listening to the show. So
yeah, I would agree 110%. I was interested in going to Bigfoot and Brews until I found out the date. Because
September 14th.
September 14th. I already committed to speaking at an event in I can't remember the name of the town, but it's in Massachusetts, and it's a cryptid event.
Nice.
So that one first, it's closer to me anyways, but I wanted to go just to check it out.
Well, good for you, man. Good for you. Knock them dead.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate
like
it.
I said, I know we didn't cover nearly what we hoped to. So if you want me back, you just let me know, and we'll do a part 2.
All right, man. We'll get that scheduled in the next week or two. I think I'm in September right now, because I try to keep it like 2 interviews a week. That way I don't overwhelm myself. Because I do 2 episodes a week. So, but yeah, we'll get that scheduled and reconvene. So
sounds good.
But anyways, everybody, that is the show. Please go check out Erick's episode.
Please do. If you like this guy's stuff, I think you're gonna like my stuff. So just give it a shout. Let me know. If you come to it from Kevin's show here, just do me a favor, leave me a review and let me know that you came from his show, and give us a listen.
Yes, do that. Do all the stuffs. But yeah. Please like, follow, share, subscribe, leave a rating and review. Leave Erick a rating and review, like he just mentioned. Let him know where you came from, if you came from this show. You can leave a rating and review on the website, which is wheretheweirdonесarepodcast.com. But other than that, guys, this is all that I got for you today. So I hope you enjoyed it. Erick is an amazing guy. I love his show. I think you will as well. So remember, question everything and stay weird.
Thank you, guys.
Oh. This concludes our broadcast day. Click.
Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. And if you're ever distressed, Cast your eyes to the summer sky, when the stars are strung across the velvety night, and when a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day. Make a wish.